Hey everybody, so good to be able to connect with you guys again today. Hey, I got a question for you. How many of you like sports? Now just go ahead and shout it out at home. I know I can't hear you, but how many of you like sports? I mean, there's such a huge variety, isn't there?
Football.
Excuse me, what?
Football. I like football.
Oh, is that because you're a sock puppet?
I don't get it. What's so funny?
You're a sock puppet. We put socks on our feet, feet, football.
Don't get it.
All right, anyway, what's your name?
Lillian.
Lillian, so nice to meet you. My name is DJ.
Nice to meet you.
Would you mind helping me tell a story to our friends at home today?
Oh, sure. I love telling stories. Hi, friends at home.
And you know what? I promise I'll try not to put my foot in my mouth again. All right, so where was I? Sports, yes, sports. In my opinion, one of the greatest things about sports is a good comeback story. Where you think you know what's happening, like this team is gonna lose, but then out of nowhere, all of a sudden they just rally together and they start winning.
Oh, like the Red Sox way back in 2004. They lost the first 3 games in the playoffs to go to the World Series. People didn't think they had a chance, but that didn't stop the Red Sox. They went out and won the next 4 games straight to defeat the Yankees and move on to the World Series, where, guess what? They won.
You know what? I am not surprised at all that you know that story. Because are the Red Sox your favorite team?
No. Why would they be? I like the Twins.
All right, well, anyway, that was a great example, Lillian.
I know.
Because it seemed like the ending was obvious, right? They were done. But then, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they did something that nobody saw coming. They started winning.
What if the Red Sox, after losing 3 games, just huddled up as a team and decided, well, we don't know how this is going to go. Nobody has done this before. There's no reason to even play Game 4. Let's just go home and call it a season. What if they just given up?
Yeah, they definitely would have lost. Right, but you know what? That's a great point. Because this doesn't just happen in sports, does it? I mean, how many of you have made the assumption that you knew how something was going to turn out, right? Have you ever had that idea where you thought you knew the ending before it actually happened, and so you just decide to give up? This happens in real life, and when it does, we have to make a choice. We can choose to be stuck and give up, or we can keep going.
Hey, that's what we've been learning about from the Bible lately. About how not to stay stuck and just give up, but instead get unstuck.
That's right. And today we're going to actually jump back into the book of Acts, which is the 5th book in the New Testament. Now, Acts is this great inside look at how the message of Jesus spread from this small group of disciples to the very ends of the earth. Hey, Lillian?
Yeah?
Do you have any other friends that might be able to help us tell this story today?
I sure do. I'll go get them.
Great. All right. While she does that, I'm going to get you guys caught back up. So if you remember, we've been talking about this mission that Jesus gave his disciples right before he went back up into heaven. And he told them to share the message of Jesus with the people in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. And this seemed pretty impossible, right? We used that idea of trying to deliver 1 box of Girl Scout cookies to every single house in the United States. Well, Jesus told his disciples to wait, right? That he was going to give them a special gift, the Holy Spirit, and this was going to give them the power to help them on that mission. So then Miss Tracy and I talked about when the Holy Spirit came and filled those disciples during that special celebration of Pentecost. And at that time, they were telling people about Jesus, but the crazy thing is everybody understood them in their very own language. Then last week, Miss Nicole and I talked about a specific story of Peter and John and how they healed a man and were telling other people about Jesus. And this made the religious leaders really angry, and they arrested them and told them to stop. But this did not stop them at all. In fact, it actually encouraged them more. Well, this was the beginning of what we call the church. Now, this wasn't a building, right? It wasn't a church building, but it's what we call the people who were following Jesus because the disciples were telling everybody about Jesus and they were believing and they were turning from their sin and following Jesus. So they became part of God's family, and so we call them the church. Well, during this time, man, the church was just growing like crazy. So much so that some of the believers came to the disciples and said, hey, we need help meeting all the needs of the people. And so the disciples came up with this idea. And that's actually where our story picks up today in Acts chapter 6. All right, listen to what it says here. This is when the disciples are talking to those believers and they say, brothers and sisters, choose 7 of your men. They must be known as men who are wise and full of the Holy Spirit. We will turn this important work over to them. And so that's what they did. They chose 7 men, and one of those people was named Stephen.
Come on, guys.
Oh, hey, Lillian.
Hey.
Can you introduce me to your friends?
Yes, this is Merle.
Hey.
Steve. Hi. Patricia. Hello. And Brenda.
All right, nice job. Are you guys ready to help us with the story today?
You bet. Let's go. Woo-hoo.
All right, so I had just told them that the leaders chose 7 men and that one of them was named Stephen. And listen to what it says here about Stephen. It says, Stephen was full of God's grace and power. He did great wonders and signs among the people.
Hello, I am Stephen.
Well, man, guys, it looked like things were off to a great start, right? With all these new leaders to help the needs of the people, it looked like nothing could stop the church from moving forward. That is until a group of people who didn't believe in Jesus came against Stephen and they actually started to argue with him.
Let's argue.
Yeah, but listen to what it says about this conversation. It says, but he, that's Stephen, he was too wise for them. That's because the Holy Spirit gave Stephen wisdom whenever he spoke. Well, needless to say, this did not make those men happy, right? So much so that they actually started to tell lies about Stephen to the religious leaders.
We heard Stephen speak evil things against Moses and against God.
Did you hear that lie that he said? They lied and said that they heard Stephen speak against God. That's a pretty big deal.
This is not right. Stephen, we need to take him to the Sanhedrin.
Oh no, not the Sanhedrin. They're the Jewish leaders that decided Jesus should be put to death. I don't want to go there. If Jesus didn't go to fair trial, I won't either.
Let's get him.
Well, Stephen continued in his bold talk as he was talking and teaching about Jesus in front of the Sanhedrin, even though he knew this may not be very good for him, right? And things didn't quite go the way Stephen had planned. But guys, God knew what was going to happen. And, well, Stephen ended up dying that day and went to heaven to be with Jesus. But again, God knew this was going to happen, and nothing can stop God's plan. And actually, Stephen's death caused the church to do exactly what Jesus had commanded it to do before he left and went back to heaven.
What do you mean? That it caused the church to do exactly what Jesus commanded? I thought they may have felt stuck and would have wanted to call it quits.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right, Lillian. I'm sure they were maybe a little confused or maybe even scared because of what happened to Stephen. But the crazy thing is, we talk about Stephen because his part of the story was actually this powerful beginning to the next big part of what God was doing through those early believers, right? The church wasn't actually gonna be stuck. This was gonna cause them to be unstuck. They were gonna go do the mission Jesus commanded. They were gonna leave Jerusalem and go into Judea and Samaria. Listen to this next part here in the Bible. It says, on that day, the church in Jerusalem began to be treated badly, and they were scattered throughout, guess where? Judea and Samaria, except the apostles.
Wow. So, because of what happened, the people started to scatter?
Exactly. And they went exactly where Jesus told them to go, Judea and Samaria. And as they went, they continued to tell people about Jesus. And so we see here that Stephen's part of the story is actually what drives God's bigger story forward.
Like we said earlier, there are times where we believe that we know the outcome and we might as well give up. Stay stuck. Think about Stephen. He didn't run away or hide from those who opposed him. Instead, he boldly stood up and faced his fears, sharing the message of Jesus.
Exactly. And then there was the church, right? I mean, imagine if the church would have just assumed that this was the ending and they were just stuck there before they even started on their mission. But they didn't do that, right? They continued to share Jesus in very powerful ways. And this actually kind of reminds me of our current situation, right? Even though we can't meet together in the church as a group, because of the internet and modern technology, man, guys, the message of Jesus is being spread in new and powerful ways all over the world.
What about you, friends? You ever find yourself here? You know the right thing that you should do. Maybe standing up for a friend who's being picked on, or telling the truth when you know it could cost you. But you're feeling scared to keep going. Remember, just because we think we may know how it might end doesn't mean that we know how it will end. You never know how God might use your part of the story to write an incredible ending.
That was very well said, Lillian.
Thank you, I know.
Well, speaking of incredible endings, I think this would be a great time to wrap up this week with our memory verse that we've been working on all month. Hey, would your friends mind coming back and helping us with the memory verse?
Of course they will. Come on, guys.
Wow, you know what? Guys, thank you so much. You did a great job of helping us tell this story.
Oh, you're welcome.
You know what, everybody at home, let's give our friends here a big round of applause. They did a great job.
Oh. Let's do our memory verse together.
I'm sure you all know it by now.
Stand up and do it with us. DJ, lead strong, my friend.
All right, here we go, guys. Ready? Let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap a crop if we don't give up. Galatians 6:9.
Great job, everyone. As always, we have a couple questions that we would like you to talk about as a family and think about today's lesson. First, when you were scared but kept going, think about times both big and small when you were scared or anxious or unsure of what was happening. You didn't know the right decision or didn't know if you'd be able to keep going.
And second, what are some ways that you've experienced God's power to help you in these situations?
Just a reminder, these questions will be on the screen when we're done, and they're in your parent prep email.
Before we go, we want to encourage you to check out the links and downloads in the Parent Prep email. There's some really great stuff to go along with this video.
All right, guys, so good to see you again. Have a great week.
We miss you.
We're praying for you.
We can't wait to see you.
Bye. Bye.